Broadcasting a new paradigm on the One Network.
Before we get very far into our next story, we do have a warning for you tonight. What you're about to see and hear may not be suitable for children. Tonight, take a walk in their world.
Transpicuous news, connecting the dots between the lines.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Transpicuous News for December 8th, 2014. This week, we're going to have our usual look at the ridiculous of the mainstream media, and I'm going to give you my interpretation of things going on. I may even prognosticate a little bit here and there, as there's a lot of very interesting stuff going on in the world right now, especially in the world of finance. First off, earlier this week, we have Obama out begging for funds. If you all remember, the fiscal budget has not yet been passed, and he's begging for the $6 billion he needs to help fight Ebola, which is really, really humorous, because the exact same day that Obama was doing a live news coverage begging for money for Ebola was the story that North Korea was accusing the U.S. of spreading Ebola and choosing Africa as a bioweapons testing ground. Now, this was all over the mainstream media, and I love, the spin doctrine. Oh, look at the terrible things Korea is saying about the U.S. Truth hurts, doesn't it, folks? Interesting going on in the medical stuff here. We're going to talk about, in Italy, has just suspended the Novartis flu vaccine because bunch of senior citizens dropped dead after having it. I love the fact that right after the title here it says, Novartis flu vaccine suspended in Italy after deaths. Swiss drug maker stresses no causal link has been discovered between the vaccine and the deaths. No, these people just dropped dead all by themselves. Guess it was just their time. Now, yesterday, I posted on Removing the Shackles a video, which is really important. It goes with this. I don't have a screenshot, but I will put the link down below. The CDC has openly announced that the flu vaccine for this year doesn't work. Sorry, folks. A video from the mainstream news coverage, and what was actually kind of awesome about the coverage is the journalist doing it says, yet even though the CDC announces that, the flu vaccine doesn't work, they've thrown a nice sales pitch there. But if you get the flu, we got a cure. Because, you got to make money somehow. Keep it really interesting. Now, this is serious, and I'm going to talk about this a little further than I usually do. This article right now, child porn possessors are to be medically treated, not punished. And the UK police are completely overwhelmed. This says a lot. First of all, the fact that the UK police are completely overwhelmed, that they're basically saying, yeah, we don't want anything more to do with this. Here, mental health people, you take care of this. We don't even want to touch this one. This goes beyond that, though. I'm not going to get into a huge amount of details here. I'm working with a group who is digging very, very deeply into exactly this topic. What we are seeing play out at the moment is a massive distraction campaign. I know a lot of people have been really, really excited, especially in the UK and England, because there has been so much media coverage recently of the pedophilia issues. So people get very excited because they're like, oh, the mainstream media is finally covering this stuff. But it's being done as a distraction. And I want people to be aware of this. Like I said, I'm not going to get into details at this point. This is going to be a special report later on. There are people and groups out there who are very much beating on this drum and trying to distract from a lot of what's really going on. It's very subtle. This article here is actually a really good indicator of that. If you notice, all the news about the pedophile issues in the UK specifically are all dealing with this happened, people coming forward with stuff that happened in the 70s, in the 80s. The tighter focus on these articles is always, this is what happened before. Therefore, we're investigating it, but it all happened before. There's nothing really substantial about the now. And this is all a distraction, because the average person looks at something like this and they say, oh, thank God, they're investigating it. Okay, it's getting in the media, people are waking up, and they're investigating it. And now I can move my attention off over here and look at other things. And that's what the distraction is all about. Make you think that investigations are ongoing. Make you think that international tribunals are being formed and these people are going to be brought to justice, et cetera, et cetera. But in the meantime, as people focus on that, over here, it's still continuing, and not just continuing, it's grossly exponentially growing. Like I said, I've been struggling with this issue of how to present this because the topic is so horrific in all its aspects. And I'm still struggling right now as to how much information to put out and when, how much the public needs to know or even wants to know on this subject, because this subject is extremely deep and it is a rabbit hole that is very, very deep and very, very horrific to go down. That's all I'm going to say for this moment. We are a group of us following this very, very tightly. Don't be distracted. Keep your eyes on what the issues are, not what the media's telling you they are. Okay? Now, getting back to the news. That was my little addendum in there. We'll go back to our regular news. This was really good, talking about the UK. Fracking toxins may be as dangerous as tobacco, asbestos, and thalidomide. This is the chief UK scientist. I love this because do you know what else fracking, tobacco, asbestos, and thalidomide all have in common? All four of them, the government announced to the people at some point in time, don't worry, these are perfectly safe. No, it's all okay. So, a little bit of truth and transparency. The fact that they're linking thalidomide and asbestos to fracking. Just wait to see what else is coming out on that venue. This article, I laughed so hard I almost snorted coffee out my nose. The right to piracy. The court orders France to pay 10,000 euros to Somali pirates for violation of their rights. The European Court of Human Rights has accused France of a violation of the pirates' rights to freedom and security. France has been ordered to pay between 2,000 and 5,000 euros to each pirate for, are you ready for this? Moral damages. Yes, the pirates are getting paid out money for moral damages. And that, my friends, has got to be one of the biggest indicators of what our judicial system is actually like, right there in one article. I love it. Sorry, hysterically funny. Now, last week, I ran with an article talking about retailers. Oh, if you want a job in retail, this is the time to get a job in retail. It's so wonderful. People are spending money. And then the numbers came out about Black Friday, and guess what? People didn't spend their money. As a matter of fact, Black Friday sales dropped by 11%. Now, this is massively huge. Now, the funny thing is, the numbers last year on Black Friday also dropped. And when they dropped last year, the excuse was, well, they do this big online Monday. And people decided to shop online because, the weather was crappy. They didn't want to go out on Black Friday. Well, they can't play that one this year because the numbers for online Monday also dropped. Now, only about 3.5%, but it doesn't matter. One of the best parts of this, because this ran all through the news, was listening to these so-called economic journalists try and spin doctor this. And the best one I heard, and I believe it was on CNN, was a financial journalist saying, well, Black Friday sales dropped by 11% because the economy is so strong right now and people have so much money, they don't even need sales. Yeah, they just said, we're just going to pay full price for everything. That's how strong the economy is right now. And that is seriously funny. Now, we're going to go into this. We're going to talk about, remember, we talked back in September, the U.S. budget for the 2015 fiscal year was supposed to have been out in September, and of course, they couldn't get their act together. There's a long story in there that we're not even going to dig into today. And it was put off. They had until December 14th. December 11th, sorry, 2 days, I think, to come up with their budget for the 2015 fiscal year. What's interesting is the daily treasury statement, so this is directly from the UST, put out the numbers that as of November 28th, so, almost 2 weeks ago, the US Treasury has been forced to issue over $1 trillion in new debt since the fiscal year of 2015 started just 8 weeks prior. In 8 weeks, they've already printed over $1,000 US, or sorry, over over $1 trillion to cover the treasury securities that were maturing and to cover new deficit spending by the government. $1 trillion in 8 weeks. I think someone needs to relook at their math somewhere along the lines. Now, last week I put an article talking about some of this stuff, and I'm going to go back here and just touch on this. We need to watch this very, very carefully, because with what's going on in the global economy, in the whispers that are being heard, this is all a setup, and something big is about to happen. So, I said in the article, I fully believe that they will shut down, Congress will shut down the government again, just like they did in October of 2013. Now, they might spin it as, we're going to take an early Christmas vacation, whatever. If they close the government down, like they did in 2013, you need to watch very carefully what's going on. There's a lot playing out right now in this moment, and I'm going to be keeping a very close watch, and I will definitely keep everyone informed of what I'm seeing going on in the background. Now, the other budget bill, this one did pass, and I'm a little bit confused of how you can pass a defense spending bill when you haven't even passed the annual budget yet. Gotta wonder. Anyways, the Defense Act bill was 1,600 pages long. 1,600 pages, okay, on something that they were supposed to vote on. Now, there was somebody had too much time on their hands, and they went digging and pulled up some numbers that were very interesting. Some key foreign policy figures in the 1,648-page bill. $24 million is the amount available for construction and property acquisition. at the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. So much for closing that down. $351 million to Israel to enhance and expand its Iron Dome rocket system. $2.9 billion going to the Afghanistan Ministry of Defense. $1.6 billion to train and equip Iraqi security forces, and $75 million to support the government of the Ukraine. The government of the Ukraine? We'll get back to that in a second. Now, there was another thing that got snuck in here. Hidden inside the National Defense Authorization Act included a transfer of 2,400 acres of Apache ancestral and ceremonial lands to a foreign mining company. Notice it says transfer. It doesn't say sold or leased. It's transferred. Now, ask yourself, what does the transfer of land, First Nation land, and giving it to a foreign mining company have to do with national defense? I think that bears a little bit of extra thinking on, and I'd really love to have an answer from someone in the Department of Defense of how that's categorized that way. This is hysterical, though. The day after all this stuff comes out, we have articles talking about the congressman didn't even read it. As a matter of fact, someone asked Representative Jim Moran, did you read this bill? And he was like, of course not. Are you kidding? I trust the leadership to make the best decision for me. So I'm just going to arbitrarily sign my name to this. I am in favor of this. But they didn't actually read it. So really, there could be anything hidden in there, and they don't have a stinking clue, which is very funny. Now, if you remember last week, I talked about the Export-Import Bank admits they've got some mischaracterizations of calling multinational conglomerates small businesses. Look, it's better this week, because this week we have the Small Business Administration is now under fire for lending billions of taxpayers' dollars to exclusive country clubs and yacht clubs and and high-profile plastic surgeons. You gotta wonder about this, like seriously. Now, here's a little something. The other thing that's coming up to vote in Congress is tax reforms. Given the bit about the Export-Import Bank and the Small Business Administration kind of playing with all this stuff, I'm going to prognosticate and say that I'm betting when the tax reforms go through, there's a good chance that you're going to see small businesses getting some kind of tax breaks to help them out. And that will explain why all of a sudden all these multinational corporations are being labeled small businesses, because they want the tax breaks too. And it's something to think about. I think you're going to watch this one real closely. Japan. There's a whole backstory of the financial side of Japan and what's playing out right now that I could probably do an entire 1 hour special on. So I'm going to give the extreme short version of this. When people talk about US debt and debt holder, they tend to focus on China. The thing is that China isn't the biggest debt holder for US debt. It's actually Japan. Now, Shinzo Abe, who is the Prime Minister of Japan, is the US's puppet. There's no other nice way of saying it. He's a puppet. The US has controlled Japan's economy for decades. Now, Abe has been putting together these economic reforms in Japan, which have been a complete and utter failure. They're to the point of it's actually being called Abenomics, it's quite ridiculous. Now, here's the play out that we've seen in the last month. The Federal Reserve announces that they've finished with quantitative easing, no QE anymore, and all the markets were like, ooh, okay, lovely, wonderful. Because the American economy has recovered so much. Anyway, about a week after that, Japan announced that they're going to do quantitative easing. And that's really quite funny. What I'm again going to give you my opinion, looking at what I've been watching here. What I see is happening is that basically the U.S. couldn't print, not really print, but print any more money. They couldn't print any more debt. They've reached the maximum they can possibly do with quantitative easing. So basically, they pointed their finger over at Japan and were like, hey, guys, you've got like that over $1 trillion in your pension fund. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do some quantitative easing for us. And that's how it's rolled out. And basically, the yen dropped through the floor. Japanese companies are going bankrupt all over the place. And in an effort, and I don't understand the logic of this, well, actually I do, but publicly I don't understand the logic of this, in an effort to put his policies on the line, Prime Minister Abe has called a snap election in Japan, which takes place on December 14th, so 5 days from now. Is a referendum on his economic policies. The logic it's strange how you would think, okay, I've just screwed the economy, so I'm going to call a snap election and get everyone to vote me back into power, so I've got a few more years to work on this. Just yesterday, article, Abe's re-election bid seems unfazed by Japan's deepening recession. I mean, deepening, it's done. It's not a recession, it's a serious depression that Japan's in right now. Now, he seems unfazed by this going into the election. So I hypothesize that the reason he's unfazed is because maybe they're borrowing the US voting machines. So therefore he knows he's going to win because, let's say, history always plays out the same, doesn't it? This isn't just a one-off. Swedish Prime Minister calls for a new election next year after their budget fails. He can't pass a budget either. So this has actually been going on quite a bit. It's like, okay, we're going to have to call an election because I've totally screwed the economy up. Let's see someone else if they can fix it. I don't know. Now, just to give you an idea of how inventive businesses can be, and this is also a very big indicator of the precious metals markets and the commodity markets right now. A company called Viola Environmentals has just put forward a $6 billion proposition to sweep up Britain's streets and vacuum up all the bits in the finely powdered platinum and palladium. So if you don't understand this, catalytic converters in cars have got platinum and palladium and a few other rare earth metals in them. And every time the cars drive along, in those exhaust, you get microfine particles of those metals just getting blown out onto the streets. So this company has come up with a $6 billion idea to vacuum up the streets to save all this platinum and palladium. Yeah, precious metals markets are in a bit of trouble at the moment. Venezuela is seizing diamonds, precious metals to boost their reserves. Now, this is interesting. Central Bank of Venezuela is adding diamonds, gold, and other precious stones and metals to its foreign reserves, which have fallen to an 11-year low. Now, if we know the whole oil commodity fiasco that's going on right now has really supposedly affected Venezuela very badly because that's one of their number one exports. But as I said almost a year ago, keep your eyes on Venezuela and Argentina. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes here than what the mainstream media would have you know. Okay. Oh, and here you go. Bottom line, just way down here in the article, it says Venezuela may also use Chinese loans in yuan to bolster its international reserves. Chinese yuan. Ooh, watch China. Keep watching. 2 weeks ago, on national television, the head of the Ukraine Central Bank announced that all their gold is gone. Their vaults are empty. They have no gold left. Now, we're going to break into this a little further in a few minutes. The funny part of this is, if you've been following a lot of this stuff play out, when the presidential coup happened in the Ukraine, that night, there were quite a few alternative media stories ran with it. There were reports, U.S. military going in and emptying out the Ukraine's vaults and taking all their gold back to the States. And now, the Ukraine's had to admit, oh, we have no gold. And the people are pissed. And let's see. Oh, wait. Is that maybe why the U.S. is paying $75 million to the Ukraine government to support the Ukraine government? Do we see some kind of a little deal in here somehow? It's interesting. I'd like to see how that one plays out. Keep your eyes on the gold. Just keep watching. That is it for today's Transpicuous News Show. I am going to take a quick break. And yeah, I know I said this a couple of weeks ago that I was going to do this, but I am going to film the next special right after this. We are going to be talking about gold. All about gold. So until next week, I hope you guys have an awesome time. Keep your eyes on the ball. Watch China, watch the gold, and especially watch what's coming out with the U.S. budget. Until next time, have a great time.
Broadcasting a new paradigm on the One